Welcome to Virtual Learning Network. Foundation course in Humanities and Social Sciences, session number 4, Post-Industrial Society. The topics that would be covered in this unit are: what happened in post-industrial society, what is the result of post-industrial society, what are the changes in the society in this age, types of changes in the society, differing viewpoint on post-industrial society. What happened in the post-industrial society? Since the 1960s and 70s, the US economy was threatened by the economic recovery of Europe and Japan. It was also facing the challenge of the third world nationalism and an unprecedented rise of oil prices. The war in Vietnam had further weakened the US and its economy was losing its competitive advantage. There had been a rapid growth in the service sector of economy. This was the time when steam and electricity transformed the method and scale of manufacturing. Since the 1960s and 70s, the US economy was not growing. It was going through a rough, or can say a bad phase. That bad phase was really not a good experience for US. Secondly, there had been a rapid growth in the service sector of economy. This sector comprises transportation, public utilities, wholesale and retail trade. Finance, insurance, real estate, government, business and personal services are also the part of this service sector. From 1970 to 2000, service sector jobs more than doubled from 49 to 102 million. In contrast, employment in goods producing industry increased only by 15%. As a measure of the decisive shift in investment flows from goods production to finance, insurance and real estate, we can examine the increase over time in investment in private fixed assets by industry sector. From the end of World War II through the 1970s, goods production accounted for about 32% of the total increase in such investment, whereas in 1980s and 90s this share was only 18%. And in contrast, in the finance, insurance and real estate sectors, investment flows from 16% in the first period to 30% in the second period, that is 1980s and 1990s. The next point is, what is the result of post-industrial society? At this time, the traditional means of transportation came into existence with source of communication. Steel and iron gave a new dimension to industrialization. Hierarchical decision-making of industrial factory production is now replaced by multi-skilled teams with groups of workers. In this regard, Bell gives the example of how in the industrial society great industrial complexes came into existence. With traditional means of transport and communication, waterways, for example, facilitated iron and steel industry to come up in a concentrated form. That example in Detroit, with communication technologies and transport, developing industrial units can be located in a dispersed fashion. Production of textile goods, for example, can mean having production and design units in location in different parts of the world. You can send design online to a production firm located in the South Asia from the US. This design's individual requirements can be speedily catered to any part of the country or any part of the world. Today, many production and design units of textile industries in the US are located in different countries of South Asia. There is a new approach to production using information technology. As a result, there is a flattering out of traditional management structure. Hierarchical decision making of industrial factory production is now replaced by multi-skilled teams with groups of workers collaborating at every stage, from design to quality control, with each team member contributing to a process of continual improvement while simultaneously being allowed access to all computerized information generated within the company. In this regard, Bell says, what is happening today is the breakup of those systems. We have a situation where the old industrial structures of the world, the old concentration of industries begin to lose their significance. Now, it is the communication which becomes the major determining infrastructure through the organization of economic exchanges, trade communications as such. The next point is changes in the society. What sort of changes came after, or can say, the post-industrial society? What sort of changes it witnessed? The concept of post-industrial society emphasizes the centrality of theoretical knowledge as the axis around which new technology, economic growth, and the stratification of society is organized. Post-industrialism is then an effort to identify a change in the social structure. The post-industrial society sees the continuation of the trends of industrial society in a historical sense. At this time, we see a drastic decline in the number of industrial proletariat in the industrial society. Labor displaced from its traditional moorings in the countryside formed a huge proportion of the factory town population. In the post-industrial society, the industrial proletariat comprises a mere 15% of working population and is steadily declining. In the same way, people engaged in agriculture make up 5% or less of today's advanced society. The shift to services is also decisive. These human services or professional services in health, education and social services expand the range of what a population can do. In the process, there is an expansion of longevity of population and expanding of these skills. Another important shift had taken place in the society with the shift to service sector. This was the large scale entry of human into the professional and service sector. In 1968, 46% of service sector employees were women. By 2000, they had risen to becoming about 60%. The shift was important enough to be characterized by one author as a second bourgeois revolution. Though the service condition of women professional workers had not broken the particular barriers. Their presence in the workforce in such large numbers meant redefining the issues which affect day-to-day life. Hence, for working women, the issue of balancing the working career and family life became important. With this grew the importance of childcare and a lay and daycare for working mothers. Appropriate neighborhood, schools and community support became very important. Similarly, the questions of maternity benefits, maternity care became center stage. These also gave a drastic fillip to the dormant healthcare issues. On post-industrial society, there are differing views. Here, it might be useful to compare the views of J.K. Galbraith on this emerging society. He focused on how new technology has integrated with multinational corporation and state. It is quite clear here that Galbraith is speaking of developments in 1960s and 1970s, whereas Bell is more sensitive to what has happened in 1980s and 1990s. Bell has drawn attention to the process of political fragmentation as more and more big corporation activities get located overseas. There is also a movement here towards freeing human life from technocratic compulsions. However, we need to be aware that the technocratic legacy is by no means over. As a behaviorist, where technologically linked thought patterns are still the orders of the day, Bell is pointing out to the promises of this society holds for us. But equally important to remember here is that the good life comes at a price. The heaviest price is the way our thought belief systems are reified. That is to say, how they are delinked from nature and presented to us as some kind of logical or mathematical symbols. If we talk about the development in that post-industrial society, then the subsequent development is that as the integration of technology with the military-industrial complex takes place, the economic function of the state become more varied. The next he sees that Bell sees a transition from capitalism to industrialism with the emergence of mature cooperation which eliminate competitive forces of market relations and ensures planned economic behavior. Finally, he says this industrial society makes possible the merger of these mature big corporation with the state. In this post-industrial society, the central occupation category was emerging as the professional and technical one. Growth in this category has outpaced all the other major occupational groups. Bell points out that from less than a million in 1890s, the number of professional and technical personnel has grown to 10.3 million in 1968. Within this category, the largest group was teachers, health workers, scientists and engineers, and engineering and science technicians. The growth of these sections is accompanied by a growth in the white collar workers. White collar workers are those workers who they work in offices, they are doing official works. From 17.6% of the workforce in 1900, their percentage has risen to 46.7% in 1968. So that we can assess that it is a kind of drastic change that happened in that post-industrial society. In the post-industrial society, the chief problem is the organization of science and the primary institution. The University of Research Institutes. In 19th and early 20th century, the strength of nations was their industrial capacity, the chief index of which was steel production. After World War II, according to Bell, the scientific capacity has become a determinant of its potential and power, and research and development has replaced steel as a measure of its strength. Similarly, the questions of maternity and other benefits that came in post-industrial societies were mystery for that time. And if we discuss the situation where the old industrial structures of the world, the old concentration of the industries begin to lose their significance, so of course we reach to a conclusion that now it is the communication which becomes the major determining infrastructure through the organizations of economic exchanges, trade, communications as such. This is the end of the session. Thank you. We Learning Happy learning. Here you have two questions to do. What are the changes that we see in the social structure of the post-industrial society? What is the nature of the change in the production process of the post-industrial society? Thank you. We learning, happy learning.